Hey everyone, this is Anup. In this video, we'll look at how to collaborate over API collections in Bruno using Git. Before we discuss how to collaborate in Git, let's go over what are the different ways on how you can organize API collections in a folder structure. There are essentially three ways that we recommend. The first, the most recommended way is to have your API collections alongside your source code. So here we have this Bruno license service, and inside this you see that there is a collection folder, and you have your source and test your source code, and your collection folder resides alongside your source code. This is recommended because whenever your source code is being, your service is being developed, as your API contract changes, your collection gets versioned alongside your source code, which also means that if any developer on your team comes and pulls your API collection, your source code, they can open this collection directly in Bruno from your source code repo itself. This is one way, and this is what we recommend if you're using Bruno as a developer and you want to maintain your API collection in your source code. The second way is you can actually maintain it as an independent project. When I mean a project, I'm talking about a Git repository. So just like how you have any Git repository for managing your source code, you have a Git repository which manages your API collection, which means that your collection itself is the Git repository. This setup is kind of useful. Let's say that you are an automation engineer, or you want to maintain your API collection separately from your source code. This is one approach. Or let's say that these two teams are different and you want to maintain some API collection to test some service which is maintained by another team, and you don't want to, it's hard for you to collaborate on the same repo, but you still want to maintain an API collection separately, then this approach makes sense too. The third approach that we have seen, or another way to manage Bruno API collections is as a monorepo pattern, right? Where you have one main Git repository, and then you have all these different API collections, right? Again, there are pros, and cons of this when compared to maintaining it as alongside your source code. This approach allows every team to maintain a central repository in your organization, and every team comes and updates these API collections. And anybody can just clone this one collection, and all of the APIs are that you use are maintained in this. This is also helpful, let's say in teams where you are using some third-party API services, and as a team you are using some other third-party within your organization, other internal APIs, and you want to maintain an API, a Git repo with all these API collections, right? This is an approach where instead of creating 10 different API collections and 10 different Git repositories, you can have a single monorepo and maintain all your API collections inside it. So that is about how the three ways you can organize your API collections. Next, let's move on to collaborating via Git, right? This is very similar to how you collaborate using your your source code or software development, or if you're using writing automation testing and you're using some testing framework to maintain your automation tests, and you're using a Git repo. The process is pretty much the same. In this video, we'll go through how to set up a Git repository, how to commit changes, how to create a branch, and how to create a pull request to collaborate over these API collections. So let's head over to Bruno. I'm going to open a bruno.json file I already have. I should actually import this Bruno collection. So I go here and I'm opening this, and I'll give the location of this API collection as test. So let me import it. Okay, we have imported it successfully. Let me just make sure that I can make this request successfully. Okay, so there you have it. I have an API collection in Bruno, and to see where it is located, I can actually click on here, or even actually come to here and go to settings. And in the info tab, you will see where this API collection is created, right? It exists in desktop and Bruno test bench. So let's actually open this in VS Code, right? So I'm going to open this desktop, and I'm going to open this collection. So in this demo, what I'm doing, I'm actually using the second approach, which is maintaining this as an independent Git repository, right? So here we have it, and these are the brew files. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first set up a Git repository, right? So I'm going to the terminal here, and I'm just going to do a git init. You have initialized a Git repository, and I can do a git status. So I can see all the files that are there, and I can use git lens in VS Code to see all the different files that will get added. Let me bring back the terminal. I'm going to just essentially do git adds dot. So all of these changes are staged now, and I'm just going to do a commit, git commit -m. I'm just going to say that this as initial commit. Okay, so now we have a local Git repository that is set up. Let's actually have this on GitHub, right? So I'm going to create a new repository. Let me call this as, this is our test bench collection. And I'm going to, let's say, make it a public repository, and you should actually make it private if you're within an organization. And I'm going to create this repository. So we have a blank repository that is created, and we have two options. We're going to pick the second option here because we already have the Git repo locally that we have created. So I'm just going to add this remote pointing to our remote repository. So I just add that, and to see that the remote is added, I can just do a git remote, and it will say that I have an origin remote, and I have these two things for fetching and pushing, right? And I'm just going to change the branch to main, and then I'm just going to push this repository to GitHub. Right? Okay, so if I come back and if I refresh it, you should see that your API collection is now stored in Git, right? Okay, so we've covered how to set up a Git repository, how to commit the changes. Next, let's create a branch and see how we can create a pull request, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new branch in Git. So I'm just going to do a git checkout, create a new branch, and I'm going to call it as, let's say, feature update, auth endpoint. Right? Okay, so we are on this branch, and I'm going to go to Bruno and make a change. Let's say I'm going to basic, and I have a 400 case, and I'm just going to, let's say, clone this, and we want to have, let's say, a forbidden request. So I'm just going to clone it, and there I have it. And let's say I go and make some changes in the, let's say, in the headers. I'm just trying to make some change. Let's say I'm just making it protected/foo for the sake of this demo, right? Okay, now let's go and see what files we changed. So again, I'm going to VS Code. And I can see that here I changed the URL to foo here. We have added that. And essentially, this is an entire new file that is created, right? And I can, instead of doing it from the terminal here, I'm just going to use VS Code's git lens to do that. So what I can do is I can add both of these changes, right? And I'm going to commit them. I'm going to say that, hey, I updated an endpoint, or added 403 test for basic authentication, right? All right, I'm going to commit it, and I'm going to publish this branch to the Git repository, and I'm just going to make sure that I push these changes. Okay, so that is done. So if I go to our Git repository, you already see that we have pushed it 3 seconds ago, a branch called feed/update auth endpoint, and I'm going to create a pull request. So we are creating a pull request from our branch to the main branch, right? And these are the changes that are there. So I'm just going to create a pull request, and then you can have this pull request reviewed by one of your team members. And you can go and look at the changes. So we clearly see that the folder structure of the collection is visible, that you have a file which is under auth basic via auth, and this is the file. You have an entire new request that is created. This is the brew format of that request. And then you have a change that you just change your URL to here, right? And then you can, let's say that you want to approve it and it's ready to merge. I'm just going to merge this pull request. So this is done. Let me go to VS Code, and I'm going to check out back to the main branch, and I'm just going to pull the main branch from the remote, and I should have all the changes that we just made that was just merged. Right. Okay, so we have covered how to create a pull request and how to essentially collaborate on Bruno collections using Git. In this video, I've not covered Bruno's Git integration itself, which allows you to do everything, creating branches, pushing and pulling, everything without leaving Bruno. I'll cover that in a separate video. Otherwise, thank you so much. I hope this video was helpful. I'll see you on the next one.